Did you know that in 2025, the average UK household is spending over £800 more per month just to maintain the same standard of living they had 3 years ago? And for many renters, monthly housing costs now eat up nearly half their income. Something's seriously broken, and it's not just inflation. This isn't just about the price of milk going up. It's a nationwide squeeze that's hitting everyone, from single parents to pensioners. But here's the twist. While millions are tightening their belts, some companies are reporting record profits, and government policies seem more confusing than ever. What exactly is going on? Is this just bad luck? Or is the system being stacked against ordinary people? In this video, we'll unpack the 10 biggest reasons why the cost of living in the UK has spiraled out of control in 2025. And trust me, some of them will shock you. Let's break it down. Number 1. Wage growth is frozen. In 2025, the biggest silent killer of your bank balance isn't just inflation. It's that your paycheck hasn't grown fast enough to keep up with rising costs. While prices for essentials like food, rent, and transport have skyrocketed, average wages in the UK have barely budged. According to the Office for National Statistics, real wage growth, that's your income after accounting for inflation, has actually shrunk in several key industries like retail, education, and healthcare. Simply put, people are working just as hard, if not harder, but taking home less value than they were a few years ago. This wage stagnation is especially painful when paired with the fact that basic living costs have jumped by as much as 30% since 2021. Even sectors that traditionally saw steady pay rises, like tech or finance, are now slowing down due to tighter company budgets and economic uncertainty. Many employers are either freezing salaries or offering below-inflation pay bumps, which means your money loses value every month. What once covered a full week's groceries might now only get you the basics. And for millions of Brits, that difference is being felt in their kitchens, at the petrol pump, and on their heating bills. The result? People are dipping into savings, taking on more debt, or working extra hours just to break even. It's created a vicious cycle where people are burnt out and still falling behind. The worst part is that this isn't just happening to low-income owners. Even middle-class households are feeling the pinch. The growing gap between stagnant wages and exploding costs is turning everyday life into a financial tightrope. And unless something changes fast, more and more people will find themselves working full-time and still struggling to survive. Number 2. Energy prices soar again. Just when households thought the energy crisis of 2022 was behind them, 2025 has delivered another brutal blow. Despite hopes that things would stabilize, average annual energy bills have once again pushed past £2,000, with some regions paying even more due to limited supply competition. The reasons are complex. A mix of reduced North Sea gas output, increased global demand, and ongoing geopolitical tensions have created the perfect storm. To make matters worse, the UK's delayed transition to renewable energy sources has left the country vulnerable to volatile international markets. Experts warn that without serious investment in domestic energy infrastructure, Britain would face another crisis. And now, it's here. Ofgem's price cap may offer a thin layer of protection, but it's done little to shield households from the real-world impact. People are turning down their thermostats, showering less, and cooking less frequently. Not for environmental reasons, but simply because they can't afford the bills. This isn't just uncomfortable for the elderly, the disabled, and low-income families. It's dangerous. Cold homes aren't just an inconvenience. They're a health risk. What's even more frustrating is the growing suspicion that some suppliers are inflating margins under the cover of market volatility. While families are choosing between heating and eating, energy firms are quietly posting profits in the billions. It raises serious questions. Why are we paying more, even when wholesale prices have occasionally dipped? Where's the accountability? With each new energy bill, it becomes clearer that this isn't just a global issue. It's a national failure of preparation, policy, and oversight. And as the UK heads into another cold winter, millions will feel the sting of a crisis that should have been prevented. Number 3. Rent keeps climbing. In 2025, rent in the UK has become one of the most punishing monthly expenses for millions of people. Across the country, Average rents have risen by more than 10% in the past year alone, with even sharper increases in major cities like London, Manchester, and Edinburgh. In some areas, it's not unusual to see rent hikes of £200 to £400 per month for the same property, and tenants are left with little choice but to pay up or move out. The housing market has become so tight that even substandard flats with mold or poor insulation are being snapped up within hours. Landlords hold the upper hand, and demand is far outpacing supply. This surge isn't random. Several factors are driving it. Rising mortgage interest rates have pushed many landlords to pass on the added cost to their tenants, while others are leaving the rental market altogether due to new tax regulations. With fewer rental properties available, competition has exploded. Add to that the fact that new housing construction has slowed to a crawl, and you get a market where renters are trapped, often paying more for less. Even professionals with decent incomes are now flat-sharing well into their 30s, just to afford rent in city centers. The pressure is particularly intense for young families, students, and low-income workers, who are being priced out of their neighborhoods and forced into longer commutes or overcrowded living conditions. Some councils have reported record levels of applications for emergency housing, while housing charities warn of an approaching crisis in homelessness. Rent is no longer just a financial burden. It's becoming a barrier to stability, savings, and even basic quality of life. And the worst part? With no major reforms in sight, the trend doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. Number 4. Food costs still rising. If your weekly grocery shop feels more expensive than ever, you're absolutely right, because it is. In 2025, food prices in the UK have increased by nearly 30% compared to just a few years ago, and the rise hasn't slowed down. Essentials like bread, milk, eggs, and fresh produce have all seen repeated price hikes, leaving many families struggling to afford even the basics. The average household is now spending hundreds more per month on groceries, and low-income families are being hit the hardest. Many are turning to food banks, with demand reaching record highs in cities and rural areas alike. Several factors are fueling this crisis. The lingering effects of Brexit continue to disrupt food imports, especially from the EU, leading to higher costs and supply chain delays. New border checks and red tape have made it more expensive and slower to bring goods into the UK. Add to that the impact of climate-related issues, such as poor harvests due to unpredictable weather and a sharp rise in fertilizer and fuel costs, and you get a recipe for soaring food prices. Supermarkets are passing these costs straight on to consumers, and for many, shopping on a budget just doesn't stretch far enough anymore. This isn't just about not being able to afford treats or name-brand products. For many households, it means skipping meals, cutting back on fresh fruit and vegetables, or relying on heavily processed, cheaper food options. The result? Rising rates of malnutrition and poor health, particularly among children. It's a quiet crisis playing out in kitchens across the UK. And while government subsidies exist, they haven't increased fast enough to match the scale of the problem. Food, one of life's basic necessities, has now become a monthly stress point for millions. Number 5. Council tax and stealth charges. In 2025, the cost of living crisis isn't just hitting you at the supermarket or in your energy bill. It's creeping into your life through rising council tax and a growing list of stealth charges. Across the UK, local councils have raised council tax by as much as 5% to 7%, with many households now paying hundreds more per year. But what's even more frustrating is that these higher taxes often don't come with better services. In fact, many communities are seeing cutbacks to libraries, bin collections, and public spaces, all while their bills keep climbing. What's causing this? Local governments are under immense pressure after years of central funding cuts. To keep basic services running, councils are introducing hidden fees for things that used to be free or affordable. That includes charges for parking outside your own home, increased fines for minor infractions, and even charges for garden waste or bulky item pickups. These small but frequent fees are quietly draining household budgets, and most people don't realize just how much extra they're paying until they're deep in the red. It's a system that feels increasingly unfair. You pay more, but get less. These stealth charges disproportionately affect working-class and low-income families, many of whom rely on public services the most. It also hits renters who often have no say in how much council tax they pay, even when their landlords don't maintain the property. The lack of transparency and consistency between councils only adds to the confusion. One postcode might pay significantly more than another, with no clear reason why. The overall effect is a growing sense of frustration and distrust in local governance, and another reminder that the cost of living crisis is being felt in places you might not expect. If any of this hits home, pause for a second and drop a comment. We genuinely want to hear how it's affecting you. And if you appreciate the effort we put into making these videos clear and honest, just one click to subscribe helps us keep going. Number 6. High interest rates are here to stay. One of the most punishing financial realities of 2025 is the Bank of England's decision to keep interest rates high, and it's hitting households hard. While these rates were originally raised to fight inflation, the effects are now rippling through the entire economy, especially in people's wallets. Mortgage holders are paying hundreds more per month, credit card debts are snowballing, and even small personal loans come with eye-watering repayments. The worst part? There's no clear end in sight. Economists warn that the era of ultra-low interest rates is over, and families are now having to adjust to a much more expensive financial landscape. For first-time buyers, this has made owning a home feel completely out of reach. With mortgage interest rates still hovering above 5%, monthly repayments have become unsustainable for many, even if they can scrape together a deposit. Those on variable-rate mortgages are facing constant anxiety, watching their payments climb with every announcement from a central bank. Renters aren't immune either. Landlords are passing on higher mortgage costs to tenants, further inflating the rental market. On top of that, businesses facing higher borrowing costs are increasing prices to stay afloat, adding to the inflationary pressure. This vicious cycle means that even people with stable jobs and decent incomes are struggling to build savings or plan for the future. Credit card usage is up sharply as more households rely on borrowing just to cover everyday expenses. The cost of borrowing is now a hidden tax on the middle class, quietly draining financial security. While higher interest rates might help calm the economy in theory, in practice, they're squeezing millions and making the cost of living crisis even worse than it already is. Number 7. Brexit fallout still hurts. Nearly a decade after the referendum, the economic aftershocks of Brexit are still hitting UK households hard in 2025. While the political drama may have faded from headlines, the real-world consequences are baked into the prices we pay every day. From food to fuel to building materials, Brexit-related trade barriers have increased costs across the board. The introduction of full customs checks and border paperwork has created delays, disruptions, and added expenses for businesses importing goods from the EU, costs that are quietly being passed on to consumers. But it's not just about more expensive imports. One of the biggest post-Brexit struggles has been labor shortages, especially in farming, hospitality, healthcare, and transport. Without easy access to EU workers, many sectors are facing chronic staff shortages, which lead to less supply, slower services, and higher prices. For example, fewer fruit pickers means smaller harvests, and that translates directly to higher supermarket prices. Meanwhile, haulage companies are spending more to train and retain drivers, and that gets reflected in the cost of everything that moves, which is nearly everything we consume. The most frustrating part is that these issues were entirely predictable. Economists and trade experts warn that a hard Brexit would result in higher consumer costs and weaker supply chains, and that's exactly what has happened. And while some businesses have tried to adapt, the extra red tape has made it harder for small UK companies to trade abroad or even survive in the domestic market. For everyday people, it means life is just more expensive, more uncertain, and more frustrating. Brexit may no longer dominate political debate, but its impact is still quietly draining our pockets. One delayed delivery, missed job vacancy, or inflated price tag at a time. Number 8. Transport is more expensive than ever. Getting around the UK in 2025 has become a serious financial burden for many. Train fares have risen by over 8% this year, with some routes seeing even sharper increases, especially during peak hours. Bus fares are up too, and in some areas, services have been cut entirely, leaving people with fewer options and longer, more expensive commutes. The dream of affordable public transport is slipping away, and for people who rely on it to get to work, school, or appointments, the costs are eating into already stretched budgets. In rural areas, where alternatives are limited, the situation is even worse. Some communities are effectively being priced out of mobility. Driving isn't offering much relief either. Fuel prices have remained stubbornly high, despite brief drops in global oil prices. Ongoing supply chain issues, fuel taxes, and the weak pound have kept costs elevated. On top of that, owning a car is more expensive than ever. Insurance premiums are up. Maintenance costs have risen due to expensive imported parts, and congestion or clean air zone charges in cities are catching more drivers off guard. For many families, running a car, once a symbol of independence, is now a monthly stressor. It's no longer a luxury issue. It's a cost of living issue. What makes this especially frustrating is that transport is not optional. People can't simply choose not to travel. Whether it's getting to work, taking children to school, or attending medical appointments, transport is essential. Yet in 2025, it feels like a constant drain. With limited government support and few signs of investment in truly affordable, sustainable transport options, many feel trapped. They are spending more time and money just to move, and that has a ripple effect on everything from productivity to quality of life. Number 9. Childcare costs are crushing families. In 2025, childcare in the UK has become one of the most unaffordable necessities for working families. With average nursery fees reaching over £15,000 per child per year, many parents are being forced to make impossible choices: work full-time just to cover childcare costs, reduce hours and lose income, or leave the workforce altogether. For families with 2 or more young children, the cost can exceed their mortgage or rent. What should be a basic support system for working parents has become a luxury, creating a major barrier to both career progression and financial stability. The government's promised expansion of free childcare hours has fallen short of demand. Nurseries across the country are struggling with underfunding, rising operating costs, and staff shortages. Many have had to close their doors or raise fees just to survive. Those that remain often have long waiting lists, limited availability, or hidden charges. It's a broken system that's not keeping up with the needs of modern families. As a result, parents, especially mothers, are taking the hit. In many households, one parent is giving up work or opportunities just because childcare has become more expensive than their income. Beyond the personal impact, this crisis has wider economic consequences. When families can't access affordable childcare, workforce participation drops, productivity suffers, and inequality grows. Children from lower-income families also miss out on early years education, which can affect their development long-term. What's most disheartening is that this isn't a new problem. It's a long-standing issue that's only worsened with inflation and rising operational costs. In a country that claims to support working families, childcare remains one of the most punishing and overlooked contributors to the cost of living crisis. Number 10. Corporate greedflation. While many households in the UK are cutting back on spending, skipping meals, or taking on debt to get through the month, some of the country's biggest companies are quietly enjoying record profits. This has led to a growing concern among economists and watchdogs about a phenomenon known as greedflation, where companies use inflation as an excuse to raise prices far more than necessary. In other words, even when their own costs remain stable or drop slightly, some businesses continue to hike prices, blaming the economic climate while padding their profit margins. Recent reports from consumer groups and regulatory bodies have highlighted suspicious patterns in pricing, especially in sectors like food retail, energy, and household goods. For example, some supermarket chains have been found to increase prices across entire product ranges, even on items not directly affected by global supply issues. Similarly, energy companies, while citing wholesale costs, have posted multi-billion-pound profits and issued large shareholder dividends. It raises a critical question. If inflation is easing in some areas, why aren't prices following suit? The answer often lies in corporate strategy, because they know consumers expect prices to go up, and many don't question the reasons behind it. The impact of this silent profiteering is enormous. It erodes trust, increases inequality, and prolongs the financial pain for ordinary people. When consumers are paying more than they need to, just to boost a company's bottom line, it shifts the cost of living crisis from being a natural economic cycle to something far more intentional and unfair. Without stronger regulation, price transparency, and political will to hold big companies accountable, greedflation will continue to widen the gap between corporate profit and public struggle. And for many, that's the hardest pill to swallow in today's economic reality. So, there you have it, 10 powerful reasons why the cost of living in the UK has spiraled out of control in 2025. This isn't just about inflation or global markets. It's a tangled web of stagnant wages, rising corporate profits, broken systems, and policy failures that are all putting immense pressure on ordinary people. Whether it's your energy bill, rent, transport, or just trying to buy food, the daily cost of survival is higher than ever, and the burden is falling hardest on those with the least power to change it. But knowledge is power. By understanding what's really driving these issues, we can begin to push for accountability, demand smarter policies, and support each other through these challenging times. These aren't just statistics. They are real stories, real struggles, and real people affected every single day. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed by your finances lately, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. Let's keep this conversation going. Which of these 10 reasons do you feel the most in your daily life? Is it rent, food, transport, or something else entirely? Drop your story or your thoughts in the comments. Your experience matters, and it might help someone else feel a little less alone. If this video opened your eyes or helped you understand what's really going on, please consider supporting our channel. We put hours of research, writing, and editing into every video, and your support helps us keep going. So hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. And if you want to stay informed and empowered, stick around. We've got more coming your way.